A shift is happening in our world right now. A transition from what I'll refer to as the old paradigm to a new, more highly resonating reality that I'll call the new paradigm. We all have the opportunity to make this shift, but it's not inevitable, and no one is required to do so. Life in the new paradigm just feels better. It's more abundant, feels more expansive and rich in experiences and possibilities. We feel more empowered within it and are not weighed down with the heaviness of scarcity, greed, oppression, abuse, and exploitation that is prevalent in the old paradigm. If you want to make this shift during this closing window of opportunity, self-empowerment is critical. In this episode, we'll discuss what self-empowerment is on spirit level, why it's so important if you want to upgrade into the new consciousness, and how it can fundamentally shift what is possible for you. And after the discussion, we get to the most important part of this episode. The group frequency calibration at the end is where the frequency work happens and where change actually occurs. So be sure to listen to that. Without releasing distortion patterns targeted by the GFC, the change you want will be more difficult to attain because you haven't addressed the root of the issue. My name is Karen Cheong, and today in Mastering Your World Through Frequencies, we're talking about how you don't need a cape to be a superhero.
So, interesting title. You don't need a cape to be a superhero because you have self-empowerment. All right. So I have used this word in the past and it has triggered people in a negative way because to them it meant something quite different from what I thought the word meant. So when you use that word, what are you meaning when you use that word?
Yeah. So I think self-empowerment can trigger people because they think that it means like being selfish, right? So empowering yourself so you have power over another. Okay, because the way that the old power dynamic used to be in the older consciousness is that is what happened in order to have power. So to have power, you had to either step on another person, abuse them, oppress them, diminish them in some way so that you could gain power from them. Okay, that's often how power was derived. Not always, but often, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Okay, and so when I'm talking about self-empowerment, it's quite opposite to the paradigm of power that used to be, okay? So in that old paradigm, not only was power like in this way, where like one person was at the top exerting influence, power, abuse, control over others, there was also this feeling that the person at the top was elevated in some way. You know, this ideal that we were aspiring to because we could not embody that in some way. You know, like we elevated them, like they're better than us. And so if they ever fell down, we were very disappointed because here's this a magnificent leader or teacher or guru or guide or whatever, fill in the blank. And when they show their humanness and show their frailty or their failings, then we judge them.
Yeah.
Okay, so because why? In that paradigm also, we're not worthy of the leader. We're less than them. Okay, so I'm just outlining the old paradigm to give you a contrast.
Yeah.
So when I talk about self-empowerment, it's quite opposite, which is that, in fact, you're not broken. You're not like unworthy. You don't need to be fixed or saved or healed by someone else.
Yeah.
You can be helped and guided. However, you have the authority to make the change that you need to ascend on spirit level. So this is a fundamental shift that's happening from like, I'm broken, I need to have somebody bless me and tell me that I'm okay, to a state where we all have this recognition that, wait a minute, there's something within me, this thing called free will, this thing called the brilliance within, this divinity within me, even though I don't know really what that is wanting to shine brighter. And there's something within me that wants to enable that. I don't need to be fixed per se, but I want to make that shine brighter. So I'm going to pick up the tools and the work or whatever it is that, you know, frequency work or whatever kind of modality to raise my frequency resonance because I know that I'm empowered. Like I can help myself rise in my frequency resonance, rise in my consciousness level.
So would you say that you're talking about the recognition that we have that power within?
Yes.
To make that connection and to make a better version of ourselves or be a better version of ourselves.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so because when I heard you talk about the old paradigm, I mean, I'm still seeing that. That's still existing.
Yeah, it's very strong, yeah, still.
Yeah. So for the steps of self-empowerment, how do we tap into that within ourselves? Like, how do I recognize that I am not self-empowered right now?
Right. So if you're not self-empowered when, okay, so first of all, I think a lot of people think you're self-empowered when you have ultimate clarity. You know exactly what's happening, why, how, what you're going to be doing next. Do you understand what I'm saying? They associate like certainty or clarity with self-empowerment.
Right.
You can be self-empowered and completely unsure what the hell is going to happen next.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make that distinction.
Yeah.
So it's not about mental knowing of what's coming next. That's not what creates empowerment, self-empowerment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And from my perspective, that's just a perpetuation of the mind wanting certainty.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to distinguish that and say, well, how do you know when you're self-empowered? Well, you'll know when you're not, meaning you feel like you're a victim or you really take in what other people say is true for you or about you. You're very influenced by other people's emotions or thoughts or feelings or judgments or whatever. Now, please know, we're humans, so you're all going to be influenced to some degree or, by other people. It's not like you're in a vacuum or anything like this, but it impacts you deeply.
But it also knock you off your center.
Yes.
Then. Right.
Yes. You're not very, oftentimes you don't feel like you're centered and stable and strong and whole. You're the opposite of that. Scattered, not focused, floaty, kind of messy. Like, we're all messy because we're human, but there's some people who are like really messy, right? Like life is just getting more and more chaotic for them. That's when you know you're not empowered.
So you're reactionary almost.
Yeah,
right.
Reactionary, or the other face of that would be judging others often, in blaming others, feeling entitled. All of that indicates lack of self-empowerment. Why? Because you're essentially then acting only from the perspective of the little s self, right? The perspective of the ego mind to which life happens to. You're like victim to life, and now you're in reaction to it, or people, or circumstance, or whatever you want to call it. It really doesn't matter. But there's no, you know what I mean? Like you're disempowered in this illusion or the physical reality. Make sense? When you start to become self-empowered, you're like, wait a minute, does it have to be this way? Do I have more say over what my experience is, what my feelings are, how stable I am, how internally strong I am, how centered I feel? Well, maybe I do. Maybe it's not just me in response to everything. Maybe I can feel different. Now, that is the beginning of self-empowerment. Like you are saying, that's it. I'm taking, control of, or taking, I don't know if it's control is the right word, but like taking the lead in my own life.
Yeah. Okay. So it's kind of like when I'm hearing you talk, it's kind of like saying, why do I keep entering into this toxic relationship when I come away feeling so bad, down, my resonance drops? Now it's time for me to say, no, I'm worth more. I'm going to turn my head the other way and try and create a new relationship. Is that similar? Or
similar, yeah, because when you're not empowered, fundamentally, what happens is you put someone else's authority over your own. Okay, you feel like, so for example, I see this a lot in the spiritual community, like somebody has a guru or a guide or a teacher or a healer or fill in the blank, whatever the person is, okay? And the devotee or the follower, let's just say the seeker, has a strong intuitive feeling about what they feel is right or wrong, okay? So they feel that. And the teacher, guru, whatever you want to call it, person, healer, says the opposite. Actually, no, that's not true, okay? That what you're sensing is actually incorrect. It's something else entirely.
Yeah.
So the follower is like, oh, I guess they must be right. I'm just totally wrong. Maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe I sensed it wrong. Maybe I just misunderstood. Maybe I'm not advanced enough. Maybe I'm not awake enough. But whatever, right? A whole bunch of different lists. Now, I'm not saying that there is never a pearl of wisdom or truth in the other person, but like if intuitively you know that like it's really counter to what you feel, that may be a sign that you're giving your power away to that other person, the teacher, the healer, the guru, the whatever. Because you're not honoring your own intuitive sense of what's true for you.
Yeah.
You just like shove that under the rug and take on what they believe is true for you.
Yeah. Okay. So carrying on from that, the grander picture of this is from a frequency resonance perspective and a collective perspective and raising the consciousness, when we're doing that, so we're actually diminishing ourselves and our brilliance and turning ourselves away from ourselves.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, so if we want to raise our frequency resonance and have that brilliant life and interact with the illusion in a better way, we have to move into a place where we start to bring back the power to ourselves. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. It's to recognize your own authority, your own significance, that you are important. Now, I know for a lot of people who do certain personal development work, significance can be a bad word, right? Like you think too well of yourself. You know what I mean? Like there is that sort of, so I don't mean that from an ego standpoint. I mean, like you're significant, you're important in the all that is, that you actually have the authority and the power to intuitively know what's right for you and what's not right for you. Actually, that's stronger for some people.
Yeah.
And what's interesting to me about people is there's so much fear often with people. So they'll sense something, okay, so meaning a truth within themselves, about themselves or someone else, and then the guru, teacher, whatever you want to call it, healer person, says, oh, what you thought about yourself or this other person's incorrect. They're actually completely different, okay? And then there's something about what the teacher person says that doesn't sit well with the seeker. But even though they're, you know what I mean? They're not sure, they keep going back to the teacher because they're not sure. They don't honor what they know is true for them.
So in that moment, what happens at a frequency resonance level when that's happening?
Yeah, so what you're doing is you're negating yourself, which is not great, because what it does is it just drops your resonance, because you're always then in that dynamic where you are not recognizing the amazingness that you are, your own divinity, your own brilliance, your own truth, your own authenticity, you know, all that stuff. You actually are negating that. And I've watched people do it over and over again, where they put someone else's word above theirs, even though the teacher healer type told them something terribly abusive. They still keep going back to that person. And I'm like, wow, if the person's really that advanced, why are they telling you something that's like diminishes you?
Yeah.
Like, is that really needed?
Yeah, because I mean, I always have in the back of my mind, we all came from the same
place,
high level consciousness.
Yeah.
And we all agreed to, if you're here right now, living in a human body, we all agreed to this.
Yes.
So we're all equal.
Exactly.
Right?
We are all equal.
We're all equal, and we're all connected to that highest level pure source consciousness. So straight off the bat, nobody's better than you.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. And people, I don't know what it is about humans. We tend to measure ourselves against other people all the time, and we tend to elevate those that we want to aspire towards, you know, and in that we create an inequality.
Yeah. And what I also notice is when we diminish ourselves and elevate somebody, we keep that dynamic happening.
Yes.
It's just stuck. We're stuck in a loop the whole time.
Yep.
We're not helping that person that has already decided that they're better.
Yeah.
And we're not helping ourselves. So it's a lose-lose as opposed to a win-win.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
So this is why self-empowerment doesn't just serve yourself. It serves the collective, because it stops this dynamic from
happening.
Spinning, right?
Yes. And it also, as you say, like, it doesn't help them. It actually amplifies their distortion, right? It amplifies that distortion in that power dynamic.
Yeah.
And which then continues to create more abuse towards you.
Yeah.
So here you are in an abusive situation, giving more power to the person who is diminishing you.
Yeah.
And you do it over and over and over and over again. And, you know, it's interesting because in the spiritual community, you can see this. And it's amplified by not just one person. It's like thousands of people doing it.
Yeah, that's right.
And you're just like, wow, this is kind of messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The very thing they're claiming they're going to help you rise from.
Yeah.
It's the very thing they dip you further into.
Yeah, I know.
Well, we do it to ourselves.
Yes.
Because we're not self-empowered.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we don't recognize our own authority, our own significance, and how you are important.
Yeah.
You know, I've talked about this before, and you know, the all that is in terms of a metaphor can be imagined like a large tapestry. You know, this large, huge, infinite tapestry,
And all of us are a thread in that tapestry with our own specific color and weight and, you know what I mean? Like its own specific resonance. But the tapestry isn't complete without you.
Yeah.
You know, you are needed. You are significant in that tapestry. Now, what you choose to do with your own thread and how brilliant you are and how much you can make the other threads around you sort of
look good.
Look good. And become more beautiful is up to you.
And that thread can be different shades of that color.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So it's not just one color.
Yes.
Or one thickness of thread.
Yeah.
And you can be a variety of different parts of the tapestry.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what do you offer? Let's just say I'm looking at your website and I recognize that I give up my power in too many places and too often. What do you offer that could help me, be more or to be stronger in this self-empowerment, place that I want to be?
So the first tool, what I would suggest, is actually the Mastery and Momentum 6 Core Essentials course, because that will start to have you build up your internal strength really strongly and to hold your space and to know when it is that your space is being pressed into by someone else.
This is your 6 Core Essentials.
Yeah, refining the 6 Core Essentials. Now, if that's too big of a jump for you, I would say the smallest, fastest jump you can take into self-empowerment is to learn how to confirm the removal of the distortion pattern.
Confirming the removal of the distortion pattern.
Yes.
Of what? Lack of power?
Well, just to know how to do it.
Okay.
Because in the act of confirming the removal of the distortion pattern, you realize that you have the power to do it.
You have the power to clear.
Yes. So I think that's really important. Now, if you don't know what confirming the removal is, there is an entire GFG episode like this one, called The Most Powerful Tool in Your Toolkit. So I would listen to that, and then the GFC following that, plus the GFC that we have on our website, is a very specific 5-step process into how to confirm the removal. Because sometimes empowerment comes from a sense of confidence. It's like, oh yeah, I do have the power to impact my reality.
Yeah.
I do have an ability to shift things around me.
I have the authority
Exactly.
to decide what I will and will not move.
Exactly.
I don't give it to you to tell me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you get to start to feel more centered because you're active in the participation in terms of what is being released from you at spirit level. You have free will. So I just want to underscore this because people often in the old paradigm want someone to save them. They want someone to just fix them immediately. Let me make this very clear. This is your journey. This is your remembering. This is your liberation. This is your brilliance. It is for you to claim. No one can do it for you, which sounds scary, like, oh my God, maybe I can't do that. You can. And what's amazing about it is no one can do it for you. So that's tremendous amount of power that you have to liberate yourself. Now, can people guide you? Can people help you along the way? Can people give you tips? Sure, but ultimately, this is about you coming into the embodied resonance of consciousness, right? So meaning recognizing that you are infinite indestructible consciousness having an embodied experience. Now, intellectually, you might hear that, be like, I don't even know what the hell that means. What's she talking about? And that's okay, because as your frequency resonance rises, it just starts to happen.
Yeah.
Actually, so don't worry about it if you don't understand what it means. This is not about an intellectual concept. This is just what happens when your resonance rises. And then when you start to recognize that, you realize very quickly that you don't want anyone else taking your authority away from you, because that's not cool. And the consequence to you when you take away someone else's authority because you think you know better, or because you're trying to protect yourself or defend yourself or whatever,
And then do you get to a level where you don't even worry about anybody taking it away from you? Because it's just not possible.
Exactly.
All right?
Because you're so strong and you feel that you're so strong in terms of your internal stability, in terms of your frequency resonance, and you feel your connection to the all that is, or pure source, or the divine, or the oneness, or whatever you want to call it. You realize you can't be hurt. That's the indestructibility part.
Yeah.
You are indestructible. So it's like you really realize that on a really core level. You're like, okay, well, I mean, I have a physical body that can be harmed and stuff, but me as consciousness, this infinite being, I can't be destroyed.
Yeah, and I often wonder as well, as I'm listening to you talking, if I am in that place, then anything that comes at me at a human level, I will recognize purely as an opportunity to establish it even more.
Yeah.
Right? To strengthen, to recognize it's just another place for me to ensure my authority.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
And I just, can I come back just really briefly? You said you have free will. I've heard in numerous places we don't have free will.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, are you talking about free will after we've cleared distortion patterns?
Yes.
Right.
So you have a little bit of it to begin with.
Right.
Okay, so what do I mean by that? So you have some free will. But the thing is, the reason you don't, okay, and people might think, well, I can do whatever I want. I mean, I can go to the store, I can spend money, I can drive around, I can buy whatever I want. It's not like I'm imprisoned,
Yeah.
right? So I can choose things, obviously. Okay, but the things that you choose are a result of your distortion patterns. So
Right.
they limit you, meaning they are the filters through which you see the world. And what you think is possible, what you think is not possible, what you believe can even be expressed through you, all that stuff is influenced by the distortion patterns.
Right.
So you think you're free, but you're not, because you're bound by those distortion patterns. Make sense?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
everything you're doing, you're thinking, you're feeling, whatever, is a result of those distortion patterns. So as you clear your distortion patterns, your ability to act more in your sovereignty, and if you don't know what sovereignty is, please watch the episode that you and I talked about that, which is very important. You start to feel it, become aware of it, know it, and live from it. Because you're like, wow, I'm not bound by those same filters anymore. Those things that triggered me, those rule sets that said that I had to do this, the expectation or the obligation that I had to do something else, the fear that limited me. All that stuff starts to drop away. So you really now have a chance to choose from a place that's not fettered by those distortions. Yeah.
It all sounds amazing. And for me, when I hear this, I see a future. If we all learned to be self-empowered in a higher level frequency resonating way, we wouldn't need gurus anymore.
We wouldn't.
Right?
Yes,
we
exactly.
wouldn't need these high profile.
Yes.
Because we already knew it inside. Yes. We already knew how to be self-empowered. So then it would be this, hey, did you get that information? Oh, would you mind sharing it with me?
Yeah,
Instead
exactly.
Of, no, I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to bow at your feet.
Yeah.
And sort of
beg
for scraps of wisdom. It's more like, okay, no, actually, I do need help because I don't actually know what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
Would you mind helping me? Great. So as I rise in resonance, there's something that is shared, So in my learning, even though it seems slow to me, you're helping someone else learn because the questions you ask or whatever happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like everyone's sort of learning together more dynamically as opposed to one person speaking down to the masses.
Yeah. It's like when I'm baking with my son, I'll teach him how to do it, and then he comes back at me with a different way of doing it. I'm like, whoa, I never thought that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my husband Chris is like your son too. He'll be like, we'll take the same route home all the time from the store or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden he'll go rogue and he'll take another, he's like, I saw the shortcut, I think it's gonna work. And at first it would really irritate me. I'm like,
just go
home on the road that is accustomed. But then he's like, oh, but see, this was much shorter. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. And because he was being self-empowered in that moment by not letting you push in on him.
Yes,
and
exactly.
I'm going to show you the difference, and then you can decide after that.
Exactly. That's exactly correct. So you didn't let me take away his authority, which is perfect.
Awesome. All right, let's get to it.
Yeah. For those of you who would like to move more into self-empowerment, then I recommend that you listen to the Group Frequency Calibration meditation that's associated with this particular episode, because that's where the frequency work happens, so you can start to release these distortion patterns that keep you from recognizing, being, and living in the authority that is your birthright. So if you've enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you click the little thumbs up button below and subscribe by hitting the little red box. We're about to start the Group Frequency Calibration, or GFC, where we actually do the frequency work and where change is catalyzed. To get to the GFC, click on the square that'll appear to the right or the link in the description below. It's time to bring in a new experience, a new consciousness, and a new world. Let's rise together.